I was in English class when they found the first body. We were right at the end of class when over the PA system we heard lockdown. 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 Naturally, everyone in the classroom immediately started freaking out and talking to each other while Mr. Tannery locked the classroom door. Mr. Tannery walked over to the windows to see outside. Our classroom is right next to the front entrance to the school. I got up to walk over to the window, but Mr. Tannery looked over at me with a nervous face and told me sit down. So this classroom is a little weird. We don't have individual desks. Instead, we have 2 columns of big white tables that are attached to the ground. You can't climb under them. So instead, we are supposed to sit down by the back wall. About half the students were lining up back there while the other half were trying to get a glimpse out of the window. "Everybody get to the back wall," says Mr. Tannery while staying by the window. We all get up and start making our way back. I immediately start moving towards my friend Clark. Clark sits towards the front of the room and could easily see out the front window. "What did you see out there, man?" Clark's face showed he was way more concerned than I was currently feeling. There were more cop cars than I've ever seen in my life, dude, his voice trembling. Vanessa was listening and chimed in, "Do you think it's a shooting?" Hearing her say the word shooting started to raise my nerves. "I don't know, but I didn't hear any gunshots, did you guys?" "No," Vanessa said. "Me neither," said Clark. Mr. Tannery started walking over to us. "Hey guys, let's." The Pennsylvania system interrupted his sentence. "Students and teachers, please stay in your classrooms and leave the door locked. If you can barricade your class doors with desks and stay away from the windows. We are trying to get this situation under control." I didn't recognize the voice. Now I was officially nervous. Everyone else must have been also, because the class went quiet. We all just stared up at Mr. Tannery waiting to see his response. "All right, kids, we're going to just wait for the police to come and get us." We all sat and talked amongst ourselves. Everyone threw out their theories of what was going on. School shooting was the most obvious, but no one had heard any type of gunshots. The chatting was interrupted by a massive scream. "No, please." It was a woman's voice, and when she said please, it sounded like a shriek. Some kids covered their ears. I don't know if it was because of how loud the scream was, or if it was just because it sounded like the woman was scared for her life. The room went absolutely silent. There was no gunshot, bang, or anything that would indicate that person got hurt. She didn't scream again. Why did she go quiet? The Pennsylvania system came back on again. "Please remain quiet. If you can't remain calm, we can't get you guys out of this situation." Screaming or fighting only makes this situation worse. The voice coming from the PA was different from the one that spoke to us earlier. It was much deeper and raspy, like an old woman who smoked cigarettes all her life. Everyone sat quietly, looking at their phones for any indication of what was going on. The very few who could started making phone calls. Our school has terrible reception. Phones don't work at all, unless you have Verizon, and even then, the only place you can call out is in the library. Mr. Tannery walked over to the front window and looked outside. He looked back at us and you could see his face was clearly perplexed. He walked back over and kneeled next to us. "All right, kids, I know you're scared, but we're going to be all right. What I want to do is just look outside the door and see what is going on. Maybe try to talk to another teacher." I jumped up quickly. "Mr. Tannery, you can't. Something weird is clearly going on." "Mr. Tannery, someone clearly hurt that screaming woman. We should just stay here," said Vanessa, clearly terrified. Clark chimed in, "Why don't we just sit and wait for the cops?" Mr. Tannery stood up. "Guys, there are no cops." "What are you talking about?" said Clark. "I don't know, guys. There were a ton of cops here a few minutes ago, and now there are none. I have no clue what is going on. I really need to figure it out." Mr. Tannery walked over to the class door and turned back to us. "Just sit here and wait for me to come back." Mr. Tannery slowly cracked the big wooden door, peeking outside as he did it. The creaking from the door opening was so loud since both us and the hallway were so quiet. When he got the door open wide enough, he stuck his head out, looking both ways. He looked back at us and gave us an okay hand gesture and a head nod. Then he stepped outside and shut the door behind him. Both our class and the school were so quiet we could hear his footsteps. He was moving quickly, clearly showing he was nervous. He knocked on the door right next to ours with 3 big knocks. No one answered. He knocked again, this time saying, "Hey, it's Mr. Tannerty, are you guys okay?" After a brief pause, Mrs. Gardner responded from inside the classroom. "We're all okay in here, Mr. Tannerty. I think you should go back into your classroom. We're all just waiting for this to end." "Mrs. Gardner, can you just open up? I really want to try to figure out what's going on here." "Mr. Tannery, I don't know anything more than you, and I really don't think there's any reason for me to open the door. Just go back to your classroom." There was no other sound. No bangs, slices, footsteps, nothing. Just Mr. Tannery's scream and then silence. Some people in our classroom screamed, some cried, but most were just silent. I jumped up and Clark stopped me. "Where are you going, dude?" "I gotta make sure Mr. Tannery locked the door," I said while walking quickly to the door. I started to slow down when I noticed the shadows coming from under the door. It looked like there were 2 people standing outside our door. I could see the door handle from where I was and the door was locked. The door handle lightly jiggled, but only for a second. I slowly backed away and went to the back wall to sit with the others. Everyone saw the shadows. We were all quiet, all exchanging looks of fear. What just happened to Mr. Tannerty? We all jumped a little when the PA system kicked back on again. It was the same raspy voice from earlier. "Students and staff, we want to thank you for cooperating with us. The situation has been dealt with. Please unlock your classroom doors and wait in your classroom for one of us to come and free you." Everyone in the class started to slowly get up. You could see the look of relief on everyone's face. As we stood up, I noticed the shadows were still under the door. I got a weird feeling. I don't know why, but those shadows gave me chills. "Guys, wait, let's just give it a few minutes." Vanessa looked at me. "Why?" "I want to get out of here as soon as possible." "Look at the shadows under the door. They haven't moved. They're making me nervous," I said, not really being able to explain myself. "Yay, they are obviously here to get us out of here," Vanessa said. I looked back for Clark, but I noticed he was over by Mr. Tannery's desk. I walked over to him. "What are you doing, man?" Clark looked at me and I could tell he was still freaked. "Dude, look at everyone. No one is going to wait to unlock that door. I am with you, though I really don't trust whoever is causing those shadows underneath the door. I'm going to hide under Mr. Tannery's desk until I know for sure those shadows are on our side." "Yeah, I'm climbing under there with you, man," I said as I climbed underneath the desk with Clark. Vanessa started walking to the door. The 2 sets of legs were still casting their shadows underneath the door. She unlocked the door and went back to sit with the other 17 students in the group. We sat there for 2 minutes until finally the door handle started turning. Most of the students were back against the wall. Me and Clark were under Mr. Tannery's desk. You could kind of see the door between a slight crack from where the surface of the desk meets the base of the desk. The door was opening towards us so the group could see who was coming in before we could. "Oh no, what is that?" Vanessa screamed before we could see anything. The door opened a bit more and I saw him, or it. Its head was circular and bald. It had rows of tiny teeth that were sharp like a shark's tooth. It had 4 legs, at the end of them 2 fingered hands with extremely sharp nails on the end. It walked like a spider, its back lower than its knees. It didn't make any noise. Its silence made it feel fake. How can it take steps without making a noise? How can it open and close its mouth without making a sound? Everyone in the room started screaming. The thing went flying towards the group and out of mine and Clark's sight. Just like when Mr. Tannery and the woman were attacked, all we heard were screams. Students screaming no and begging, "Please." Then they would be cut off in the middle of whatever they were saying. 2 guys tried running for the door. The thing jumped on one of them and bit his shoulder. He opened his mouth to scream, but nothing came out, almost as if the silence spread to him. The thing then stuck its 2 big nails into the side of the kid's head and pushed, which caused the boy to collapse immediately. The other student made it into the hall, but the thing was on him instantly. He screamed, "Please, please, please," as the thing took a bite out of his side. Then the silence infected him as well. He received the same fate as the first 2 boys. 2 big nails to the face. The Pennsylvania system burst back on. "All students and staff, please leave your classrooms. Everything is safe. Everyone is clear to go home. So now what do we do? Everything is silent. I know the monsters are still out there even if I can't hear them. No one is coming to save us. Clark and I are still sitting under this desk, sitting silently. I've been trying to make calls to anyone, but my calls just won't go through. I managed to gain the courage to get up and grab Mr. T's laptop. There's no way to make phone calls or anything from it. The school doesn't have Wi-Fi for us to access on our cell phones. The monster hasn't come back to the room. I assume because it assumes everyone in here is dead. I don't know what to do at this point.